Okay, Viva question. What was progressivism fighting against? Today, we glorify many of the policies and actions taken by progressivism in early 20th century America. However, the effectiveness of their efforts can blind us to just how different early American urban centers were from their 21st century equivalents. The unprecedented wave of immigration and industrialization, which transformed 19th century America, produced lawless and chaotic urban centers which progressivists sought to stabilize. My three arguments are the chaos brought on the first wave of urbanization. The power grip of machine politics and government corruption, and then the gangs that dominated the immigrant communities within many of America's cities. Okay, my first point. A rising tide of chaos and violence was brought about by the 19th century urbanization. Pollution and poor sanitation were endemic to 19th century urban life. Cities were emerging too quickly and did not have the necessary plumbing, garbage removal, and fresh water sources. Many kids would play in the dirty streets and would not take the proper steps to clean themselves afterwards. The pollution had gotten so bad that the rivers were starting to catch on fire. In 1858, the Thames River received waste of thousands of people who lived upstream at Parliament. The Thames River could not drain at low tide because it could not carry the waste to the sea. The incoming tide pushed the waste back upstream. This cycle resulted into the river becoming a cesspool for the excrement of nearly 3 million people. So all of the waste that people were producing would flow down this river, and since it got it so bad, it was going back up into these buildings and sewage pipes, and it was going back up the hill. This had to shut down Parliament and created a bigger problem because the Thames River was a large source of drinking water in London. This had a big impact on progressivism and needed to be fixed. Second point, the sheer chaos and lawlessness of city life made many people's lives almost unbearable. Politicians, aware of these changes, realized that they could ensure success for themselves by offering help with employment, housing, and financial trouble in exchange for votes, thus born the political machine system. Once these political machines realized they could win elections like this, they increasingly relied on patronage and corruption to stifle democracy. Today, many of Tom Mann, I don't know. One power figure was Tom Manley Hall. He was a Scotch-Irishman named Boss Tweed. Tweed was able to keep his job through his ability to ensure the loyalty of his voters by jobs he could create and dispense in the city. This led Alex Palmer to say Boss Tweed and his associates are thought to have stolen somewhere between $30 million and $200 million from New York. That's between $365 million to $2.4 billion in today's currency. For example, one of the schemes he did was on the construction of the New York Country Courthouse. The budget was $250,000, but ended up costing $13 million. This was because of embezzling money through their workers, and a carpenter at the time would be paid $360,751 per day, and a plasterer would be paid $66,594. So these workers were getting massive amounts of money, and in return they would give back a good portion, like 10% almost, or they would keep 10% and give back 90% back to Boss Tweed and his associates, so they could make money from the government illegally. And my third point is gangs dominated the immigrant communities within American cities. One of the greatest tasks of Adams and others was the colonialization of immigrants by culture, education, and speaking the native language, which would be English. One of the members of the gangs was named Sadie, and she would work on the streets with a male companion who gave her some extra muscle. When they got a target, she would take a running start and headbutt the drunk man, and thus was nicknamed Sadie the Goat, because goats ram other goats with their horns and their strong foreheads, so just like her. One day she got a little too drunk and had a bad confrontation with the bouncer. They got into a massive fight and Sadie got her ear bitten off. Later, the bouncer and Sadie became friends, and Joseph J. Bruno said Sadie wore her severed ear in a locket around her neck for the rest of her life. This is all how the rapid population of countryside to city-side people had on lawlessness and chaos, and how progressivism did not really work in early 20th century America.